Right.
Just to kick off, can you recall a moment in time when you were growing up that you had the realization came to you that you had the ability to really sing, that you discovered your voice, so to speak?
Well, no, not really. I mean, I know I always sung from when I was a kid, so it was not necessarily the thing of realizing that you could sing. I could sing. It's what do you do with it, right? And more the point is when you realize that yes, you can just sing it, because then you start listening back to what you're singing, right?
Yeah.
And then you start getting a consequence about, well, how do I want to sing? Nobody really, if you look at any singers in their really adolescence and that, they never really have a style of their own early on. You know what I'm saying? Unless you're Stevie Wonder, I don't know what, but then I can never figure out where he comes from anyway. He's a whole other planet, right?
Yeah.
But that's a good point, actually, is that when you're growing up, you realize that you haven't found the voice of your own yet. So you start, I just would sit and go, well, hang on, what do I like? And then I looked at things that I'd like, songs I'd sing by who, like Jim Reeves or Marty Robbins or the Beatles or whatever. And then you start making these hard, fast decisions. Well, Jim Reeves, I can't sing like that. He sings like Johnny Cash, really low. I mean, God, it's going to take me a while to get me head around that one, right? Although you love the songs. And then you think of the Beatles and things, well, yes, there's some of them things I could sort of sound like. And then you look at then I start delving into all different kinds of artists, of all the R&B people, and then that's where you get your phrasing a lot, right? And then it just snowballs from then on. You pick the things, a little bit of everything that you like, right? You know, because there's plenty to not like. You go, God, what the hell is that? That's awful, right? And then somebody says, why don't you sing that song? I said, you got to be joking, So you get very opinionated very early. That all started happening to me like when I was like 12, 13 years old. I was a real arsehole. I got real opinionated about everything, and you lose a few friends on that one, because it doesn't mean to say because somebody likes something that's like totally idiotic. It doesn't mean to say they're a bad person.
Yeah.
But people start go, oh, who do you think you are? I said, well, I ain't anybody. I just don't like it. That's it. Turn it off. But you find you do lose friends over that kind of thing. And so I started to realize that I was getting on this singing jag, and then about 14 or so, I really started treating it, well, not serious. It was serious all the time. It's just then I decided to do it as, well, what one calls a living,
Yeah.
But then at 15, I went to professional, which is a bit unusual. And my dad always had the funniest thing to say about that. He said, yeah, well, you know what professional means, don't you? Because I was living at home, obviously, up to that point. He says, oh, that's great being professional. That means you're going to have to pay for the car, put your own gas in it, pay for your own rent, buy your own food, and get an apartment. He said, yeah. He says, I think seriously about this professional. He says, it's not quite as good as it's cracked up to be. And when he said that, I went, oh, God, that was a bit hard and fast. So then you got all that to get used to, I suppose. But like anybody, just like anybody else, right?
You had a pretty early introduction to the rock and roll touring lifestyle.
I got thrown in at the deep end. People say, well, how did you do that? I said, don't look at me. I had nothing to do with it. I got elected. It wasn't anything to do with what I was saying. That doesn't happen that way. It was Mick Jagger and Keith Richards' fault. They're the ones that pulled me out of the thing and said, look, hey, do you want the job? And you'd be a fool to turn it down. Really. But that was a lot of fun, you know. I mean, that kicked it into another gear. And, you know, I moved to London, and of course, that affected all the touring you did anywhere, before or after, you know. And then it just snowballed from there, you know.
You toured with the Stones again later on in '69.
That's right. I was just going to say that. And lo and behold, like, not many people go out with them twice and live. You know. Yeah, I'm telling you. God, it's a hard road to hoe, that one. But, yeah, and then they asked me to do the '69 tour, that one was vicious, because that was like, what was it, 38, 40 cities in a row. Mm. And they don't hang around much either, you know. I mean, there's one day off a week, so it was, gosh, dude, nobody tours like that anymore. Yeah. They all like do 2 days and 3 days off, and 2 days, 3 days off, you know. But the Stones, they don't, no, they're vicious on that one, you know. Which is good, you know. Why sit around and spend all the money? You could be at home, you know.
Yeah. There's a famous quote of Aretha Franklin's around that time about you.
Oh my God! Yeah, right.
Did you recall when you first heard that quote and how you felt at the time?
Yeah. No, it was funny because she was in London hanging out with Ahmet Ertegun, and I was just about to sign a deal with Atlantic Records, right? So, and Ahmet wanted to sign me personally and sign me to the label, and so he brought her down to the club. A club called The Revolution to come and see me, and all this. Little did I know, I had no clue. I didn't know he was going, right? And the next day, this came out in the papers. It was funny because I'm on stage, you know, you look in the audience, right? I don't know if you do this sometimes, you know. Yeah. Anyway, you're on the stage and you're looking at the audience and you see people. And this was a club where Peter O'Toole and Omar Sharif would go. It was all in private clubs, right? So you never know who was in the audience. You'd see people and go, holy shit, just Elizabeth Taylor, Jesus Christ, what's she doing? She should get out more, you know. So you'd see all these celebrity people. And then this one night, I'm looking, and Ahmet Ertegun, I wasn't familiar with how he looked. I hadn't met him yet, right? But I know what Aretha Franklin looks like, and I'm looking, going, you know what, that woman in the audience, between songs, I'm looking, she looks a hell of a lot like Aretha Franklin. No, I couldn't. And then the next song, I go, you know what? She's a dead ringer for Aretha Franklin. And then all the set, I'm going on. Then we finished that set and took a break. And Ahmet called me over and said, Terry, you got to meet Aretha. And I went, holy shit, you got to be kidding me, you know. She was great. She's lovely, you know. She's sit down, come on. She always calls me her little white boy. Well, I'm not surprised, you know. Really, she's very funny, you know. My little white boy. God, truth. Which I take as a real blessing, quite frankly. She could call me whatever she wants as long as it wasn't bad, because that would crush me. You know. But the next day I go walking in the office and no one would have a clue. She'd go and say something stupid like that, you know. And I walked in the office and usually everybody would ignore you. You know what I mean? You go in and just see if there's a check for you or something. And everybody said, would you like a coffee? Anything I could get you? Would you like a drink? I'm going, what's happened to all this lot? I got a bit unnerved. Everybody was being too bloody nice, right? Yeah. You know, and then I went in, and I was managed by Peter Grant at the time, and he says, oh, you've done it now. I said, what? He said, have you seen the paper? I said, no, what? And he says, look at this. And it was a center page spread, actually.
Really?
Right? Which is, it wasn't like a little column on the second page. It was like wham, and like headlines thing in the middle. And I went, now I know why I had 3 coffees. You know, yeah.
Tell us about working with Mickey Most. He was at the peak of his success at the time. It was a pretty turbulent working relationship, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, he was at the peak. Who was at the peak of success? Him. He sort of. No, it was. He'd had all the success, and that was still rolling around, and we all know very well of his success and everything. And but the era was changing, and he didn't want to change with it, you know. I don't mean he only wanted to record analog and not digital. That hadn't come along yet. God knows what he did then. Oh, Christ. But, no, it was more his technique was, okay, one take will do it, and that's it, right? Go moving along, you know, not... And he's very self-centered and everything, you know. And everybody had problems with him, you know. I mean, they don't talk about it, but Donovan more than anybody. But Eric Burden, he got ill early, right?
Yeah.
But and he just cling on to things because that's what he did, which I sort of can't blame him for in that sense. But you know, I mean, he was clinging on to me like a leech. And I just told him to go shove it, and that was that, you know. Oh, I'll put you behind bars. I went, oh, fucking great. No, good answer, yeah. We're getting a long way here, right? But it fucked me up really bad for a while. It was, you know, I mean, litigation, and because he's got the lawyers and all that, and he pressured me into a corner of, well, I'm going to make you spend all your money, you know, just holding your own, right?
Well, it left you unable to record for quite a few years, which must have been really,
exactly.
Really
you know, I couldn't get out of that part of the contract because when you signed a lot of people, the same with Donovan as well, is that in them days when you signed, it was perpetuity. It wasn't like a 5-year contract with options and all that. That's just before all that. You see, the one with Ertigan was 5-year with options. That's when that all started happening, and. That was after that. But all them early contracts, the Searchers and the Beatles, everybody was all perpetuity, you see, right? Sort of like an Indian 99-year lease, right? Yeah, one of them deals. The thing is that, you know, it's a little different there, you know. I mean, they tell a friend and they tell... Never mind. Anyway, it was all, you know, shit happens, you know.
Yeah,
that's what happens in things. I just turned around and went forget it and put a band together. I said, well, the one thing you couldn't do, because there was a test case in the courts of England that said you cannot take a man's living away from him, which he was trying to do that too. You can't work, right? Yeah. You're lucky if you get a bloody job, let alone work, right? So I put a band together with Dave Lindley and Alan White and Lee Miles and me, and we just toured all around the universities and everything, and actually we became really successful doing it. Just kept the flag going, you know. And that was a lot of fun. And then right towards the end of that marriage of all of us guys in that group, people had started to move, and I signed with Atlantic and got an album out of it, you know.
You did, which
was that was River.
It was River. It got great reviews. Didn't sell in huge numbers.
No. It wasn't what they wanted, you know. That's when it was just getting into boy groups and look, it's starting to get into what the 80s become. You know what I mean, right? Yeah. And I disappeared then. I said, no, disco's not my thing, right? You know. And, boy groups, so whatever. It just, all things change. It's just I wasn't keen on what it was, right? It was everything started to sound like the bloody Eurovision Song Contest, you know? Yeah, you're familiar with that one, even though you're down there, aren't you?
Oh, yeah. No.
We all have to bloody put up with it every year, and it's the most shocking, sinful representation of what they call music that you've ever heard in your life.
It's awful, and Australia's participating in it now. We're not even in Europe.
You know what I mean, right? Everybody gets in there, and then you've got these goth bands from Norway with big platforms and studs and shit, right? It's like, okay, right? It's nothing like having a heavy metal band win the Eurovision Song Contest. There you go. That ups the game a bit, you know?
Yeah.
Music's a funny thing, you know. I mean, you look at it all as well, you can't look at it all at once, but you look at it, you've got a bloody laugh, you know. Yeah. And but the one, I suppose, one good thing about the internet is it's given everybody a choice to do what I was saying at the beginning of this the interview, is that, you know, when did you realise you could sing or whatever? And I get into like you making decisions for yourself. Well, the same thing happens to the public now, which wasn't really that easy to do back then, because you couldn't get hold of all these things that you'd heard on a radio, right?
Yeah, true.
Now you can just push a button and you can dial in anything that you heard once, or, You don't have to call the radio station. You know, you can find it in 2 seconds. Right?
So true.
So I find that, you know, when we do gigs and things, not just my material, we regard it's just talking to kids and that. It's amazing to see their point of view and their taste on what they like. It's shocking. I mean, it's like, what? That's 1940. Oh, but I love that. Oh, my God, Nat King Cole. I said, oh, my Jesus Christ. You know, so some of them things, I think, it's great for music because the internet has showed that some things will always be good.
Yeah.
You know, like Nat King Cole or Sinatra and things, and Elvis and things, you know, grinning through everything.
Yeah.
Right? You know, that's the one thing about Elvis, you know, he had to be a nice guy because all those stupid movies he did and that, he's still grinning himself to death, going, can you believe I'm friggin' doing this? Right? Like he's looking at the camera like, you gotta laugh. You know, funny guy, you know. And everybody says that about him anyway, you know, everybody I know, I never met him, but all the people that knew him say he was a total crack-up. He didn't treat any of it serious at all, you know.
Yeah.
Little hard to say when you can't even go out only at night, you know. Good.
Speaking of the internet, I found some fantastic footage of you playing at the very first Glastonbury Festival the other day, which is great to look at. Do you have any memories of that?
Oh, my God, yeah. Yeah, I do. I remember it, right? Well, the funny thing about it is the one thing I didn't remember that much was... I remember that David Bowie was, God bless him, he was a good friend of that, but he did it as well at the beginning of his career when he was reciting poetry. So you have to understand, it was all more so than they say now. It was the summer solstice, right? And, you know, where the forces of evil and good meet, and the winds come up, and oh, here we go, right? And the druids will turn, whatever, you know. So they all got into that, and there was a very funny thing that happened. There was one thing on the pyramid stage they had early one morning when the actual hour of the solstice and the sun coming up, and the RADA, which is the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art in London, right?
Yeah.
But which is, you know, serious dramatic art. A lot of very famous people came through it, right? But they had a performance of the old Druid festival of the winds of the summer solstice of this, right? You know, so it was on it was on the menu. You know what I mean? You know, it was like Steve Winwood, like Traffic, Terry Reid, and the summer solstice. Here we go, right? So I'm looking at this going, the wind ceremony. Oh, God. Like, no more beans for you, you know. Right? What's this all about? So we go over there, and I'm standing. You got to understand that as you see that thing, and they pan and show, like, what they call the audience, there's hardly anybody there. They're all up in trees and around the countryside on the Piltdowns. It's all rolling meadows, right?
Yeah.
So you don't see a lot of people. You know, there's one girl with no top on or something or other, and, you know, she's taking up a bit of room. But anyway, this is all going on, but we're watching this RADA thing, and I swear to you, and it wasn't because what we'd all taken or anything, it was just, we were watching, there's about 20 of us, and all of a sudden, Dave Bowie and a bunch of us, they go, and the wind, and they got all these saris on, and flowing robes and that. I thought, back at me, they've got a big wind machine going on up there. All of a sudden, this horrendous wind swept all across the meadows. All the trees were blowing. I thought, well, no, you can't afford to blow the trees at all. Hang on a minute. And this huge wind came up, blowing everything everywhere, right?
Yeah.
As they're doing this ceremony. And it sort of made you think a little. Like David looked at me and went, do you think they're serious? I said, well, I don't know. That's what they said. And it was very funny. So I remember hanging out with David and Steve Winwood a lot there. And then, funnily enough, you know, because, well, not just because, but David would do interviews a while ago and things like that. And not too long ago he did an interview, and they asked him the same question. And you said, what do you remember of the Glastonbury Festival? And he said, well, not much. He said, we were all so high. He said, the one thing I do remember, though, he said, even though we were all gone, right, he said, we're sitting talking with Terry Reid for 2 hours, right? And that bit, I don't particularly remember that well, not 2 hours. I remember hanging out, but I probably didn't shut up or something, I don't know. Right? But he says it really nicely, the way he says it in this interview, which is very, very humbling, because he's a lovely guy, you know.
Yeah.
He said, oh, yes, I love Terry. Terry, we would talk for ages. He said, that's about all I remember. Which, coming from him, was a bit strange, you know, because all the things he's done, you know.
Yeah. How annoying has it been over the years, the attention that's given to the fact that you passed up on the opportunity to join what became Led Zeppelin?
No comment.
Fair enough.
No comment. I'm all done with it now. It's just a pain in the fucking ass, you know. I mean, people just... Everybody loves an accident or a fucking train crash, it seems, on the news, you know.
Yeah.
They won't let it go. I do what I do, and I did what I did. So, no comment. I don't want to even get into it, you know.
Well, I guess what people neglect to see is that you pretty much were responsible in putting that band together. And
yeah, I put it together, but I don't want to talk about that, so forget it, you know.
Yeah.
I see him. I see Robert all the time, and we're best of friends and that, but that's not, I mean, he comes to gigs and things, and we'll hang out, have a good old time, and people are pushing and everything. Of course, that changes everything, right? And he gets all pissed off. He said to this one guy who pushed him last year, he said, hey, and Robert's a big, tall guy. He's not 5'3", right? And he's built like a you-know-what house, right? And he's standing there, and he turns around. He says, hang on, Terry. He said, look, I don't get a chance to hang out with my mate Terry and talk. We never don't see each other as much. And what's your fucking problem pushing me? I thought he was going to crack him one. The guy went white, you know. Oh dear. I went, oh, okay then, fine. So we have a good time together, you know, and we see each other in that. So, and God bless them, man. 5 million people can't be wrong. So good, it's great. It's all of that shit is all a happy accident anyway. You never know if something's going to be successful or not or whatever.
That's right.
You know.
And it would have been a completely different band had you joined.
Yeah, a lot better though.
Yeah.
No, you never know, right? You know, who knows? They probably had a keyboard player in the band and fucked the whole thing up. You know.
Someone who's been a great supporter and friend of yours through the years has been Graham Nash. Can you recall the first time you met Graham and what it's meant to have someone like him?
Oh, that's funny. That is, yeah. Well, me and him are still going over that. And Graham, I swear to you, you've probably got mates that have got a memory like an horse, an elephant, you know. I don't know what it is with Graham. He is so scary. He remembers. Okay, you know how you meet somebody and then you see him again. You go, what was his name? Oh shit, I can't remember. So quick, tell me what his name is. What's his name, right? And then they come in the awards show. Terry, oh shit, no, right? Graham remembers most of my friends' names more than I do, along with his own. I mean, he's scary. So the whole thing of I did a gig in Santa Monica one night. And I invited him to come down. He said, oh, I'd love to come. So he comes down. I said, do you want to get up and sing something? He goes, absolutely. Right, so, okay. So he turns up, and I'm going to introduce him to come on and sing and do some things, right? And I'm talking. I said, this is my good friend, Graham. I said, now, you got to understand, I've known Graham for an eternity, for forever, and he's a big influence and all that. I said, but I met him when I was about 15. He said, all of a sudden there's a voice from the side of the stage. No, you weren't. You were 14. And I went, I thought God was talking or something, you know. And I went, and so I look over and say, are you sure about that? He comes stomping on the stage, give me the mic. He goes, we were playing a gig at Ramsey Gaiety, which is in Cambridgeshire, right, you know, which is one of those semi-roller skating rinks they used to have in England, right, which is, it's roller skating one night and a revolving stage, which is a dance band on one side and a group on the other. You probably had that in Australia, I don't. Yeah, it's a right job. And then when you start playing your songs, the roller skaters all get on there, and they're all going around in a circle, like an ice rink, right? Mm-hmm. The only thing is that with rock and roll, the more that you get going, the faster they go, and the more bloody noise. So the trouble, we were talking about this, and people are cracking up. They're thinking we're making this up. But I said, no, you've never seen the likes of this, right? I said, so you sort of slow down a bit because you can't hear what you're playing. Right? And he's laughing. I said, well, anyway, getting back to it, I said, that was the Hollies, and that was the first gig. He said, yeah, and you were 14. I went, if you say so. So I've known him since. I just saw him just a few weeks ago. We were in England, and I was touring over there. And lo and behold, he was playing the night before I was doing a gig down near Bournemouth.
Oh, yeah.
Right, at this arts centre, right? So I call up and go, Graham, it's Terry. I'm just down the road. I'd love to see you. So I get a call right back. And, yep, I'll put you down. Yep, you and your friends, right? And, yeah, come back and let's say hi. Same as it ever was. It's been for years. So I go back and talk to him, what's happening these days and all that, And we had a good old time. It was great seeing him solo because when he's with the guys, and Crosby, Stills, Nash on the whole deal, is they get little snippets, they say, but nobody really tells stories and stuff. Because there ain't the time, right?
Yeah.
They've all got to play a song and 4 or 10 each. So they never talk much. It's just about the music. So not only that, you better be careful you say the wrong bloody thing with that lot. Jesus. So with Graham, when he gets on his own, he starts telling stories about the songs and things, and then I never know what he's going to say, right?
Yeah.
One night in London at Hammersmith Odeon, he was doing that, and he tells the story how he took acid and went to Winchester Cathedral, which is a real demonic place of, how would you say, God bless all the art, the services, but back to the Norman times in the 1100s, right, and his tombs of this soldier with, his sword and the whole deal, And when you walk in there, it's very spooky anyway, because it was really dedicated to all the services from back to the Norman times, right?
Yeah.
That's very spooky. So, and he went there on acid that freaked him out. I said, why would you do a stupid thing like that? He said, well, that's all right saying that now, right? He thought, and slept at Stonehenge and the whole deal. So he's telling this story. And then he says, I'd like to dedicate it to my friend in the audience, Terry Reid. He understands. Thanks a lot. Oh, very good of you. Thanks. Couldn't you have picked my house or something? Something a little gentler. Not the one where you rented a car and took acid and went down to Winchester. Oh, God, mate. But on the other hand, I love the idea that he did. Because I remember when he did that. And he was still with the Hollies then,
Yeah.
And I remember when he came back, he was as white as a sheet. I said, what the bloody hell happened to you? And then he told me the story. I was sitting on his apartment floor, rocking. I almost wet myself. I'm choking with laughter. He was dead serious. It's not funny, right? I'm going, yeah, right. Yeah, we all do stupid things,
Yeah.
God. And then he wrote that song, but at least he got a song out of it.
Yeah. Of all the producers you've worked with, would he be the one that's probably got the best out of you in the studio, do you think?
That's hard. It was the most fun I've had so far in the studio. I must admit. But there was more to it than that. We had Al Schmidt as well, who was one of the producers with me and Graham making the album. And one has to understand, Al Schmidt's legacy is Sam Cooke, and God knows who else. I found out that he did. Sam Cooke came into town when he was on the road one time, and he had 2 songs. He had Having a Party, that we all know, right?
Yep.
And he had, what was it? You Really Got a Hold on Me, which Smokey wrote, right?
Yeah.
Smokey Robinson. And he come into town and said, come on, I want to cut a couple of tracks. So Sam, because he knows Marvin Gaye and Smokey, he invited all his friends down because he said it's like having a party. invited Lou Rolls and all them. And when you listen to the records, that was cut at Ocean Way, it's called now. It was United Western then, on Santa Monica Boulevard, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Al Smith was the engineer. So, working with Al, he goes back a long way to like Count Basie Band, and recording with him is unbelievable. His techniques, his natural way of recording things. There isn't anything he doesn't know about anything, you know.
Yeah.
And Sinatra and all the greats. He's the nicest guy. He runs Capitol Records now, the studios at Capitol.
Oh yeah. Yep.
He's the main guy now. He's got Willie Nelson and Barbra Streisand, and you know, it's big 70-piece orchestras, but he's still the same Al. I go down and see him and have lunch and hang out with him. I did this last year, and he was doing an album for Aretha Franklin. He was doing the mixing, and I went there. I thought he's probably got an hour at lunch, you know, something. And I ended up 4 hours. I'm still down there. And he's talking away, telling me about all this and that, and he's just a gem. And then recently, I just got hooked up with the whole deal. I got a call from another producer who I always wanted to work with, and it looks like, touch wood, it looks like I'm going to, right? He's Jack Douglas.
Oh, wow.
Who, I've known him for like 35 or more years. He'll probably say 36, like Graham when you were 14, you know. But I've known him all through the Aerosmith thing and all that. And he called me up because Joe Perry's doing a solo album. And he said, well, Josie, and he said, we came to this decision that you're the guy to come down here and write with Joe. And he's got all these guitar tracks and with drums and bass, and they're all put together, but there's no song or lyrics or anything, right? Yeah. And I said, all right, okay. So just first of all, the chance to work with Jack is, to me, iconic, right? I mean, he's a real deal, too, like Al Smith. Yeah. And they know each other real well, too, funny enough. When we get down there talking, he shows me a picture of him and Al together. I go, oh, God. Well, like, I suppose I'm right then, you know. And he knows the mics and all that. So I get down there, and lo and behold, I didn't realize what the deal is that Joe is staying at Johnny Depp's house, right? And the studio is Johnny Depp's. He's got this killer studio there, right? Oh, yeah. So I get down there and I go, well, so I'm writing away and I'm writing on paper and just listening to the track and singing, doing this and putting it all together, and you know, it's going good. All of a sudden the door flies open and here's Johnny, right, in his full regalia, with his scarves and fucking chains and shit on, you know. Yeah. And he comes in, nicest guy in the fucking world, right? I can't believe it. Hangs out all night. Opens a bottle of wine, little of the grape. Here we go, right? And every night was like that. So we'd done 4. Which ones they use it, I'm not really sure. That's his decision. But I've written 4 of these songs with him.
Oh, yeah.
So far, and it's great because all these guys have been around so long, and none of them, including Johnny, none of them have an attitude about anything. Yeah, it just goes. It's just like staying at somebody's house making an album. So now Jack's talking, and Johnny's talking about they want to do an album for me, which I'll believe it when I see it. But you know, I just was on the phone the other day with him. He said we want to get started up on it. So keep your fingers crossed, because Christ, I mean, I didn't say anything. It wasn't. I said, well, I wish somebody'd tell me. Here's another one. Sometimes when things happen, you can try, beat it to death and try and get somebody to do something. No chance, no cigar. Yeah. And then sometimes, just right out of the blue, something will happen like that. There is a magazine called Classic Rock. You're probably familiar with that.
Yeah, yeah.
And they gave away the first thing that we did as a CD with the magazine. You know how you do that, right? You know.
Yeah.
And it's called I Do Happiness. If you check it out, and it's great. So I'll tell you, there ain't many ballads on it. It's just slam hard rock and roll. When he played me a couple of tracks, I went, okay, I see where this is going. Okay, no ballads, right? Okay, Right, so we're just slamming. It's sort of going back to the beginning again. It's like a full circle. Can you believe it? Right.
Yeah. Huh.
Oh, well, I have a lovely ballad you should do, Joe. Well, let me play you this one. No, forget that. Not a good idea. Yeah. And then we went out and did a gig. Johnny decided to put it together just for Christmas. And he does a lot of benefits and causes and that for children and all that, right? So we did right when the Anaheim, when the big things going on, the NAMM Festival and all that, with, you know, where you got 4,000 guitar players all playing in a different key.
Yeah.
You know, Christ, it's lovely. I don't go. But Johnny said just down the road is this private school that he'd done before, and he's going to do it with us. And he says, "Do you want to do it with us?" And I went, "Yeah, sure, I'd love to." And he was sort of the Hollywood vampire thing he does with Alice, right? You know, you're familiar with that, right?
Yeah.
Right, so it's sort of that. And Alice I've known from Detroit when Iggy started and everything, you know. And so we all know each other. So I went, "Oh, this is great." So I said, "Well, what songs do you want me to do?" He said, "Oh, no, we're going to do a whole set of your songs, like Treated Right, Brave Awakening, and Faith." I said, "Wait a second, what are you talking about?" No, we're going to rehearse. I'll book the rehearsals, and we get the band together, have a good time, and you do a whole set, and then you come on and do some things with me and Alice. I went, "Jesus Christ, hang on a minute." So it was a ball. We had a ball. I got Alice, and you got Abe, who's Paul McCartney's drummer, that big fella. You know?
Oh, yeah.
He's tremendous, you know. So we became sort of love buddies immediately, because you couldn't lose him if you wanted, right? You know. So we had a ball doing the gig, and then he would keep talking about maybe doing another one. And with this album thing, we'll see what happens with that. I just got back a couple of weeks ago from Europe, doing a tour over in England, you know, so we'll warm up on that again and see what's going. Well, what a trip. You'd never believe it, would you?
Yeah.
You know. Well, you go, because it's all over the place, you know. You should check that track out, because the track's pretty interesting, you know, because Joe Perry's got a distinctive, as we know, I mean, I know you know, right?
Yeah.
Distinctive guitar style, being Aerosmith. And it's interesting to have somebody, a different singer singing with him, right? Because it puts another spin on it. As much as I love Steve Perry, I mean, but he don't want, you know, if he has Steve doing it, it won't be a solo album, will it?
True.
It'll be another Aerosmith album, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so he's there's a bit of a squabble about that one, you know. But I'm good friends with Steve. It ain't no big deal. I haven't talked to him about it. I hope he's all right with it, but, you know. But
I believe there's been a documentary of you in production. Tell us about that, and are we likely to see it anytime soon?
Not anytime soon, no. What happened was there's this gentleman that approached me to do a documentary, and I said, well, I'd love to do one on a co-production basis, and it's the story of my life and the whole deal. You know, it's what it's about, right? So, and he said, well, first of all, I'd like to interview people that you know and all this. So I introduced him to Robert and to Spencer Davis and all these different people, and told him all these people and all this, and set him all up with that. And he did the interviews, did a trailer, and put that out there, right?
Yeah.
And that's as far as it got. That was 2 years ago. He wants to do the whole bloody thing himself. Let me do it. I said, no, look, read the small print. It's a co-production deal. I want you to get things in there that are personal things about me, you know, that I was 14, not 15, and things, you know, very important things.
Yeah.
No, it's about me. It's not about you, right?
Yeah.
You know, so we're at loggerheads on the thing at the moment, and it all just locked down. I mean, if I'm going to do it, I'd rather do it how the people, the audience would look at it, and English people and yourself, you know, basic layman out there, you know, not a bunch of tossing fucking, you know, impressionable, you know, star things, you know. I'm not into that.
Yeah.
These are my friends, you know. I know they're all famous and got millions, and that's not the point. The point is it's how they got it and where they came from, and you know, maybe a couple of problems they had. You know.
Yeah, true. Well, yeah. And in the end of the day, it's your story, isn't it, really?
Well, it's supposed to be, but you try telling him that, you know, he thinks he knows best and everything, and then all I got to do is hit him with a hammer now, you know, it's like, Christ almighty, don't you love people like that? Yeah, it's your round, right? Oh, no, I got the last one. Yeah, right, that's what you think, right? Yeah. So, anyway, that one's on hold, because I can't deal with bullshit. It's he doesn't contact. I told him, I said, look, let's just make it easy. Write a script of things that you want to do if we're continuing, right?
Yeah.
And let me see what it is, and then I can vet it, and we see, you know, hey, maybe he comes up with something that involves me. You know, Lord have mercy, right? Because all the rest of it wasn't. So I said, you know, then we'll go from there. Haven't heard a word, right? So I know where that one is.
That's a shame.
He's just waiting for me. He's just waiting for me to die now.
Oh, no.
Fat chance. Yeah, well, I don't know. I'm just joking. It's so fucking ridiculous, you know.
Well,
they're out there, boy. They're out there. You know?
I hope it does get done. I hope it gets done your way too, because it'd be good to see.
Yeah. Oh no, I agree. Well, I mean, I'd love to do a book and things as well, you know. And sometimes it's better in print because you can go backwards and forwards, and it's not so coloured. You know what I mean, right?
Yeah.
But and you know, there's a lot more you can put in a book, but all that is that I'm getting on when all this stuff's happening, you know, working with all this situation with Joe and all this. So I'd rather just play at the moment, you know, and not get all wound up in that whole thing, you know.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
Hey Terry, it's been great catching up with you. Much appreciated.
Yeah, I'd love to come down there, man. Oh, gee, I've never been to Australia. I can't imagine how many Australian people I know. Gosh, truth. It's amazing, but I'd love to come down there and play.
Oh,
you know,
we'd love
you
to
should
see
stab them with it, you know.
Yeah, look, we've got a fantastic festival season down here, the first quarter of the year, and
do you?
You could make your way around the country and play gig after gig. We'd love to see it.
Yeah, well, if you have any clout, which I'm sure you do, I don't say that lightly. If you have any clout towards that, for God's sake, please. It'd be a blessing. I'd love to come down there and spend some time, you know.
Yeah, well, I don't have much clout, but I can certainly point you in the direction of people that do.
There you go. Shoot me an email if there's anybody to talk to, you know, and that too, all the above, and it'd be great, you know.
It would be great, and we hope that album comes together. We'd love to hear that. There'll be a lot of people hanging out.
Oh, yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Well, Joe's will be out next year. We'll see what happens with that. You know, that'll be a laugh. I'm swear. One song he got me doing, and the only way I heard it was that you know you had to swear all the way through it, you know, and because now they stopped beeping things out, you know, with the brothers.
Yeah.
So, or at least it made the internet. But it's hysterical when you hear it. It sounds like you're sitting in a bar talking, like normal people, you know. Yeah. Right. Oh dear.
That's funny. Good on you, Terry. Thanks.
Well, good one.
Thanks a lot for your time.
Okay, buddy. God bless you. In a bit.
We'll stay in touch. Cheers.